Hey, welcome to the Boundaried Boss Babes podcast. I'm Erin Anderson, your host, and I am so excited that you are here joining me today for another episode. If you're a female entrepreneur just like me, you understand that everything you build, everything that you have comes from relationships. And because of that, you also understand that relationships require really great boundaries. Hence the reason why we have this podcast, so that way you can take your business and your life to the next level. So sit back, relax, and get ready for another episode of the Boundaried Boss Babes podcast. Hey everyone, welcome. We're so excited you guys are here. So I have with me two very wonderful, very loving, fabulous women in my circle who I just love so much. We have with us Bronwen Olshlegger and Tera Brown. And Bronwen and Tera are both the directors of the Shaoli Hope Center. And Bronwen is like the intuitive business consultant and the event planner. And Tera, she's the emotional safety mentor. She's the one that does the life coach certification and directing. And I just love these ladies so much. And I know one of their biggest things is about how your relationships talk to your money mindset. And I feel like that's such a key piece in what we do, like what we talk about, like so key in our successes, right? Because everything that we do and everything we gain is somehow tied to some type of relationship. And so talking about how our money stories and our relationship stories actually have a lot of the same threads is so fascinating for me. And I know that these gals love that kind of conversation too. So I want to welcome Bronwen and Tera to the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love, can I just start?
Yes, please.
As you're talking, I'm thinking, oh yeah, because our patterns, we create these patterns of how we react to things and how we do our life and how when you say this, I'm going to do this. And when I hear this word, this is what I think. And we create all of these patterns in our life, and they're not isolated to our relationships or only to our money or to our relationship with our body or to whatever is going on, the relationship with the food that we eat or the way that we move our bodies, like any of that. So if when you can start to point your finger towards a pattern, then you get to see how that shows up in all of your relationships, whether it's with your own emotions, with the people that you came from, with the people that you live with now, with your body, with your spirituality, wherever that relationship is at the moment. They're all intertwined because we are the same person. We have the same triggers. They're coming from the same places. Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Absolutely.
So true. And because the thing is like we're the key thread in all of our life, right? Like
I like
we're
to say we're the
always
common
there.
denominator.
We
Yeah.
are totally the common denominator, like the key in every piece of it. And so what our cycles are, the things that we're consistently cycling through, it really does show up not just in our relationships and our money story and everything like that. It shows up in so many different places, our bodies, our mental, our environment, for crying out loud. And I say
Our
that like
eating.
our eating, yes. And I'm like fully saying this, like looking at my office space, like I need to declutter again, right? Like I'm saying that again. But like it is like I feel like that's kind of a big piece of this is like we look at our spaces, we look at our bodies, we look at uh our money, and there's always like this thread of release, right? Like I want to release weight, I want to release this habit, I want to release all this clutter, I want to release. But are we really considering like what is the thoughts that are keeping us tied to what we want to release? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about this a lot. I spend every morning listening to people who are talking about these exact things just to keep myself sharp
Mm-hmm.
because, it comes down to what you're expecting. And I think it takes a lot to get yourself really honest about that. You
Mm,
know, what are you thinking is going to happen? What are you expecting to happen? What are you saying you don't like? I mean, Tara knows me. I'm like, I do not want this to happen. What's the contrast that you're saying? But that contrast is exactly what you need so that you can decide what you do want. But how many of us are actually getting there, right? To
mm-hmm.
that new decision. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
It goes with your
Yes.
relationships, with everything. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. So much so. So much so. And I know, like, as entrepreneur women, like, what is, like, the things that are mostly on our mind, right? It,
Mm-hmm.
it is our money success, right? And, like,
Mm-hmm.
bringing in the money that we want to build this vision, this dream. But also,
Mm-hmm.
I think not all women, but there's also that nurturing side of us, like with kids and family, and like these are the things that we're all trying to balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I look at my own threads, right? And I've got, kids from the age of 17 all the way down to 3 at the time that this podcast is being recorded, right? And I think to
Mm-hmm.
myself, like, oh my gosh, my house is a total disaster, right? Because I've got those kids that live here. And as I've been thinking about, you get it, like Tara's sitting
I'm
there.
only laughing because I can tell you a really fast story that I was so excited for my second son to move out and go to college because I was convinced my kitchen table would be clean if he wasn't dumping on it every day. And after he was gone for about a month, I realized he wasn't the only one depositing things on the kitchen table. But when I saw that there were things there, I could feel free to leave. And I just realized that he wasn't really the only one. I had been blaming him the whole time.
Yeah.
I had just
Oh,
part in it. It was a hard look in the mirror.
Yeah, it kind of kids are great at doing that, aren't they? Right? Like my oldest, like he's getting to the point like he's about ready to, spread his wings and fly. 17. We've got about one more year with him, like let's be honest, right? And maybe a little more, but he'll be going either college or like somewhere else bound, at that age. And um I see what you're saying, right? Like I can totally hear this. And I'm thinking about like my own relationship with him and like the clutter sometimes that he leaves, right? But one of the things that I've been considering is like what what about me is cluttered, right? Like what kind of messaging have I given my kids that might be a little cluttered, right? And as I've been thinking about this idea of like self-respect, like don't do things for mom, do things for you. Like that's way more important. And how often, and I've been really considering this, like if I'm thinking this way, how many other women are doing the same thing in their business, right? Like I have to do this for somebody else. I have to do this for somebody else. And like all this give, 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 give. And I feel like this is one of the biggest things that women entrepreneurs deal with, is this idea
mhm.
that we have to give so much. What about us? Like, what if we're actually doing these exact same things for us?
I love that you said that. That's like where I am right now. I like just hit total burnout over the last few weeks, and I'm like, okay, we're realigning because this is not working for me. It was all about everybody else and protecting everybody else. Tara and I just had a really good conversation about this yesterday. I'm like, I am done. I need to do this for me. It needs to be right for me, and that is it.
True.
and
it,
and
it took a while for me to get there. It was like I was really holding on to that stuff where I got to protect everybody from work. I have to protect everybody from work. I can handle it all.
I think that's a
Right?
gift. I think it's a gift of the, I don't want to say middle age because that sounds terrible, but of the middle of our life when we're like, hey, this pattern isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who I am anymore. I can't tell you how many times I
Yeah.
have people in conversation and I'll say, "What's your favorite color? What do you love to eat?" And they look at me like, "What language did you speak?" Like I have no idea because I've given up so many parts of myself to make this house run, to make this person feel better, to make sure this person stays alive, right? That I give up myself here and there all along the way. And I think that's a beautiful part of midlife crisis, if you want to call it that,
Seriously.
is I get to start discovering me again. And I always love to say this can be an adventure. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be a drudgery, like choose. And I don't, I can try all the things and I can be so excited. I said this yesterday, it came out of my mouth. Like I can be so excited that I discovered today that I hate calamari. That's so exciting. I never have to have it again. Right. And
Yay!
instead of like, I
Right?
failed and I did this thing wrong, and now I know that I don't like, and I wasted all that money on it. Right. Instead, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just invested in myself and I figured out what I like and what I don't. Yay.
Right? Seriously. No, seriously. Like that's such, I think, a huge thing because you think about business, right? And one of the things I hear is like I love my business, I love my life, I love these things, but I'm also so freaking burned out, kind of like what you were saying just a second ago, like Bronwyn, right? Like it's almost kind of like lost its luster, right? We get into business for certain reasons. Are we pursuing business for the same reasons, right? Like I think we get into business for ourselves. Like I really, really do. And that's part of the reason why it's so yummy at the beginning. But when we start living for other people, it's really interesting how business loses its luster. I
That's a
know I've
really
been
good
there.
point.
I know I've
Mhm.
been there, right? Like honestly, like just the last few months, like when my kids were getting out of school and everything like that, like all of, like you were saying, like having to have my hands, and I won't even say hands, like it was like I was an octopus, like tentacles everywhere, right? And not just 8 of them. I had like a billion tentacles literally everywhere, and I was feeling so lackluster. Interesting, isn't it? But once you shift things back to, you know what? What's really authentic to me? Because nobody wants to do business. Uh, at least the people I talk to don't want to do business in an inauthentic space, right? We want to be authentic. Really authentic to who we are. How are we going to know that if we don't take a look at who we truly are and work on this relationship? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really think that it's true that how your money is showing up, to cycle back to the money topic, how your money is showing up is really in direct relation to, or I should say, how you think about money is in direct relation to how you think about yourself. And I know, like so many of us have done so much personal growth, but is there ever an end to healing, Tara? Like, right?
No.
Never an end to healing. So if there's never an end to healing, there's always that next, okay, what's not serving me anymore? Maybe it used to serve us so well to think of it that way, to think of ourselves whatever way, right? But it's not serving us anymore. And that's where that beautiful level up gets to come. And that's where, our relationship with ourselves improves, our relationship with our family improves, our relationship with our money improves. And it, like Tara was saying, it's all intertwined. It's like you were saying, it's all entirely connected back to what you think of you,
Mm-hmm. It really
right?
is. And what
Mm-hmm.
you're worth. Now go figure that one,
Yeah. I,
right?
I love that you said that. Yeah. Because I mean, I just got this beautiful new car, right? This fully loaded, lovely
Love
Audi.
it.
And I feel like I belong here, right? It feels
Mm-hmm.
right. I feel good. But when we got it, we had some people that we were showing it to because I was just excited and grateful, and you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to show people the cool things and the possibilities. And the thing that came forward was that they just don't. They, what a waste! How dare you spend your money that way when you could get a more, like, a cheaper, more you know what's the word I want, more realistic Huh?
Economical.
Yeah, more economic. Like this is a good car. It's everything that I need it to be for what I need to do with it, right? But it's also very comfortable, and I feel like it's like takes
It
care of me
embodies you.
back.
And yet,
Yeah,
why do we judge ourselves? Right? Like
yeah,
seriously. And why do we allow other people to judge us for those kinds of things?
Yeah.
Like
Why do we
actually
take on their
claiming,
judgments?
right? Claiming the
yeah.
things that we want.
Well, I'm not worried about their judgment, but I'm just seeing what's going on in the world. I'm like, wow, there are people who think this way about themselves. And that's what it was. I'm not worth a car like that, is what was the underlying. If I were in a car like that, I would feel selfish and uncomfortable.
You're right.
Why?
You're right.
Right? That's the message that I was hearing.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, I don't feel selfish. I feel grateful. I was like,
Right?
this
Right?
is
Like what a
good.
beautiful thing. Like
Maybe don't
why
show them the next thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay.
you know,
I won't trigger you on purpose.
so I have a client. She's a dear friend of mine now because clients get to do that, right? We get to become super good friends with our clients. And she has a Corvette Stingray. And she got a lot of the same kind of feedback, right? For getting
Yeah.
a Corvette Stingray. And she paid cash for it, right? No
Hmm.
payments, nothing like that. And I watch her when she gets in that car, and this is what's really interesting, okay? I watch her when she gets in that car, and she just literally settles into herself, like her true,
Hmm.
like her true essence,
Yeah.
right? And this is part of the
Yeah.
reason why, like, some of the best business coaches out there will ask you, well, what's your dream car? Like, well, here's some things
Hmm.
about entrepreneur women, right? We love to go fast. We love to go fast.
It's true. I
We
love the
love the
turbo thing.
luxury. We love to get in touch with ourselves. We love those things. And we love ourselves enough to gratefully give ourselves what we want,
Hmm.
right? And this is
Hmm.
what's really, really amazing about this. Like, I find like the feedback that we get for claiming the things that we want is very interesting, right? Um, I have someone in my life. I just recently took a client of mine to Oregon, just Oregon. Like it's like an hour and a half flight, right? Not far. Just a hop, skip, and a boat right away. It's all good, right? And it's gorgeous over there. We took 4 days. We did a lot of breakthrough work in Oregon with my client. I come home and I got the same thing. Like, why on earth would you do that? Right? Like your
Hmm.
kids, they need you. Your client doesn't need you as much as your kids do, and which, granted, that might be true, but guess what? My kids also need to not be with me all the time, right?
Hmm.
And this is the thing, like we need to shift if we're going to increase our earning capacity, right? We have to shift the way we show up.
Hmm.
We have to shift the way that we show up, not for everyone else, for us. Because the thing is like, and I'm hearing you guys say this too, right? I feel like when we are saying to ourselves that we have to show up for this person here and this person here, this person here, this person here, what we're literally doing is we're taking this beautiful golden vase, right, that has all this worth, all this potential, all of this beauty, smashing it and handing a piece to someone else instead of letting
Mm.
the vase actually
Overflow.
do the earning
Mm.
and the producing. Instead of keeping the vase intact, we are literally ripping off pieces of ourselves, right?
Wow.
And it's
Go,
an
go. Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that. Like like give me a little bit more about what's in your mind about this space, us as a base. 'Cause I like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I use a vase a lot, right, in my coaching and in my
Mhm.
analogies because uh some of the vases that fetch the highest prices in like antique markets and things like that are the ones that I don't know if you've heard of like the Chinese sculptors who they actually take these porcelain
Break it.
vases, they make them
Mhm.
beautiful, and then they break it, and then they like literally put it back together with gold, right?
Mhm.
Literally. And that's part of the reason why they're so incredibly beautiful and so incredibly worth it. They still hold the capacity, but legitimately, when you break it and you put the gold back together, put it back together with gold, it actually increases the capacity, makes it a little bit bigger. Go figure.
Mhm.
Okay. And then also, because it increases the capacity and the beauty, it creates more worth, right? To the person who loves that vase, to collectors, to like the people who that vase really speaks to. Make sense? However, when we are sitting there, like I know like every entrepreneur woman has definitely felt smashed at some point,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
We've been there. We've
How
been
many
there.
different times?
How many different times, right? We've felt that. We've definitely felt that. But what ends up happening when we are trying to please every person and we're trying to live life is we get smashed, but we never come back together
Mhm.
because our pieces are scattered too far, right? The whole point of bringing the vase back together is the simple fact that every piece comes back together, right?
Mhm.
That's the thing. And now, like taking that analogy and putting it into the business world, right? Like I said, every entrepreneur woman that I know of has felt smashed at some point, right? Whether it be physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, legitimately, we have felt smashed at some point. But some of that smashing comes at our own hands, right? Where
Mhm.
we think that we have to be something for someone else, right? So, for example, like, I think this maybe even talks a little bit to the time boundary where we feel like we have to show up for this client, we have to show up for this client, we have to be this one. Another way I see this happen is like say you have a client and you're talking to them and you've got another client you're supposed to meet with at a certain time, but because this client needs still some healing and some help, right? We allow that client to move into the other client's time, right? That's one way it happens, right? Or I see like, and maybe you can tell me a little bit more about some of the things you were going through, Bronwyn, but like I also see that like I know as a mom I do this, and I think maybe just as women in general we do this, where my oldest has this problem going on and my youngest has this problem going on, and there's all these problems and all these fires going on in everybody's lives, right? And so here I am sometimes feeling like I have to put them all out, right? But what if I
Mhm.
don't, right? Like those are
Mhm.
ways that I feel scattered. Or when I have to take care of the entire house and everybody's mess, I feel scattered, right? Like I'm handing pieces of myself to people and I'm never going to get those pieces back, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What if we don't? Right? Sometimes I look at the mess and it definitely smashes me because I'm like, oh, I just barely organized, or I just barely cleaned, or I just barely, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying we leave our spaces in complete chaos all the time. But what if we don't have to clean it right in that moment? What if we don't have to put out the fire? What if we don't, right? Is it possible that the whole, like, what if we don't, might actually be the highest form of faith that we can have in our business and our success and in our relationships?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like, am I making sense? I'm like kind of going off of
Yeah.
thoughts here.
Yeah. Um, I feel like I'm gonna draw from a conversation that I was having with somebody in my family. who you just described more of what her need is. I take downtime. My big thing that has kind of crushed me and burned me out over the last little bit uh, is that I realized I don't really want this thing that I thought I wanted. And so it's like this emotional turmoil of the death of the dream, and you know what I mean? Like there and a really full calendar, way too full of a calendar. But this family member doesn't even give herself time to sit and meditate. Like doesn't even take anything for herself at all. And she's setting up a photography business and everything, right? So she's got her kids and her house and herself and her business, and it's new, and she's trying to get it off the ground, and she's not taking time to be centered like any day. I'm like, you're doing this now. She's like, thank you, tell me what to do. I'm like, okay. And she's still not, she feels like she can't, right? Like what you're saying, like it's I love what you're saying, because if I could help her see that, I'd have her listen to this episode. If I could help her see that whatever is happening right now, that when you blocked out time to do some meditating and take care of yourself, can wait. You think it can't because the story in your head is that they'll think I don't love them, or if I don't drop everything for people, then that means I don't love them, right? And that's a big story for a lot of people. And it's one of her,
especially for entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. But you know, what is the message to the money story?
Well, if you're spinning and you're so busy and you're racing from thing to thing, you're not mastering anything. So how are you going to get anything really done? You're just feeling busy perpetually.
Yep.
And never getting anything done.
And so is it possible that the belief is that in order for me to have success, I have to literally kill myself?
Maybe. What were you about to say, Tara?
I have so many thoughts. What if the story is, in order for me to be worth something, I have to perform, or I have to do this thing, or like my story is, you need me to, show up in a certain way. And I was thinking about what you said about your kids and leaving them to go to Oregon. What if leaving them and allowing them to hold space for themselves for a few days is exactly what they need? What if it's exactly what they need? And because I had this interesting conversation with my youngest yesterday, and he was like, I don't know if I'm ready for school, and I don't have enough money saved for tuition, and I think I might just work full time for this semester. And I said, great. And he said, and I'm really worried that I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. And I said, but you're only 18 and you don't have to know today what you're going to do when you're 50. I've recreated myself a bunch of times. And giving him the gift of that, I said, here's the deal. We make a deal with our kids. Well, we made a deal with each other, I should say. And we informed our kids that they can live at our house rent free if they're going to school. And if they decide that they would instead rather get a job and work full time, that they have 1 year, and then they will be charged rent, and they can either pay me rent or someone else. And I've had kids do both. But I said, the boundary around that is, I don't want you to think when you're 40, you could still live here rent free.
Right.
And I'm setting a pattern now for you so that you can know that you can take care of yourself. Because it's nice when mom takes care of everything and hands you the card whenever you need XYZ, but it doesn't build any self-esteem.
Exactly.
Dependent on you.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, I know for me personally, I would not want to be attracted to a 40-year-old person who's still living with their parents, right? Like, it just doesn't feel good. No, doesn't feel good. Like, at some point we have to leave the nest, right?
Yeah.
But that is also to say that, you're teaching responsibility, you're teaching them a sense of self, right?
But let's
So,
translate that to business.
yeah, exactly.
So, and I was a few minutes late because I was with the client. I couldn't leave in a puddle, right? So, but when I am out there doling out my whatever, we could say pearls before swine, even, right? And I'm teaching and whatever, and I'm not speaking the language people are after. I could be running myself ragged, and people wouldn't still be wanting to hire me because I wasn't speaking the language they needed. So I need to hone in on who I want to talk to and say the things that they are looking for, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
how we build a successful business.
Mm-hmm. But it also, I think, comes down to like, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like, we do need to hone those things. But I think that's what you're doing, right? Like, if we can tie this all together, like, that's exactly what you're doing when you're talking to your son,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're actually helping him see a sense of what it is he truly wants,
Mm-hmm.
right? And selling him that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this all the time, and I think we all have pits that we fall into, but one thing I think in general as people, as a human race, that we fall into is this idea that we can have what we want without any effort, right? Like, there's that, but I
Yeah.
also see we can have what we want, but I have to I have to prove it. I have to work so incredibly hard to have what we want. Sometimes the effort that we put in and the hard thing, I think, probably more than anything, is actually giving up the ideas that have created the situation that we're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because what if you can have everything you want and with very little effort?
Exactly.
I have had lots of that in my life
Yes,
because I
exactly.
aligned myself to the energy of what it was I wanted.
And that's where the effort happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
point.
That's
Yeah.
the point, is when we align the energy. And that is an effort. And sometimes,
Mhm.
like I know in my situation, it's been a Herculean effort, right? But it comes down, like I talk about relationships as you have your relationship with God, you have your relationship with self, you have your relationship with others, and you have your relationship with abundance, right? Well, entrepreneur women, we like to think a lot about our relationship with abundance, right? And matter of fact, I think everybody out there likes to think about their relationship with abundance. How often do we hear there's not enough money, right? But if you follow that up a little bit, are they also saying that my relationships don't show up to support me? And if we follow that up a little bit, are we also saying something along the facts of I'm not worthy
Or God's
Mm-hmm.
not there for me.
or God's not there for me, right? And this is what I'm saying, like this is what's so fascinating to me is our language matters, right? How we talk about money, like literally, we're probably talking about our relationships the same way, and we're probably talking about ourselves the same way. And we
Mm-hmm.
probably have a major trust issue with God, right? However, what happens, like if we can take a look at the money story and the relationship with other story and see those as a result, like what are simply our results with others, what are our results with money, and we can say, what is it that I need to do to change inside of myself? Now, that can go two ways, right? You can totally
Mm-hmm.
smash yourself and scatter yourself in a million different directions, right? Thinking that you have to prove it to everyone else. Or you can bring it back in and say, you know what? What I need to change inside of myself will result in me having greater self-compassion. If you can catch that drift, is it possible that you're going to have more success? Is that the thread of gold? Is that like the piece to this whole vase that's going to bring you the most value? it's a scary thought sometimes. You know what I mean?
I have a lot of anecdotal evidence that that's true, though.
Mm-hmm.
As I have more compassion for myself, I find it for other people, for my
Mm-hmm.
patterns, for my relationships. It magnifies everything. And that compassion is the gel. Like, I come from the theater world, so that colored gel that you put in front of the light, that you see everything with that, like that's when we talk about rose colored glasses, right? If you can put that as your compassion gel and shine that out into your world, yeah, it's what you see it. It's the lens you see it through.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And what kind of money shows up for us when we give ourselves a little bit of compassion, or even a lot of compassion?
It's sort of, I can say for me at this point, it's sort of effortless a lot of days,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not, that's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on what I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
I just tell myself it's there. It's there for me when I need it.
Mm-hmm. Because you're there for you when you need it.
Yeah.
And you believe God is there for you when you need it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you, one of the most transformational times in my business, because I did betrayal trauma coaching for 11 years, and I would have some really good success with that, right? And really made a lot of change in a lot of people's lives. But I think one of the key pivots in my business was, number one, stepping into my mission and purpose, right? Sometimes our mission and purposes actually evolve and change, right? I completely
Or
believe
how
that
you understand them. I'm
or
sorry.
how,
How
yes,
you
yes,
understand them changes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's so true. Because the thing is like, I do believe that I was there to serve those women in those healing journeys when it was necessary, right? Totally believe that. Because I've been through it. Heck yes, I get it, right? But shifting gears and saying, you know what, actually, I want to serve a whole other demographic of people now was a little scary at first until this download came. If it's my mission and my purpose, well, then God won't God fund it? Right? Do we believe that? And like, what if we really did believe that? Would we relax a little bit about money?
Yeah, and that what is um Florence Scovel Shinn, she says that the manifestation comes on a don't care see. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care. It's fine. I want this, but yeah, it's gonna happen. Whatever. I don't care how it happens.
It's just gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what if we
That
don't?
happens so many times when women are trying to get pregnant. Trying for years, like so stressed and trying. I actually don't know what trying means because I did never have to try. But I just have known so many women who like decided to go a different way, signed up for infertility counseling, or signed up for to be a foster mom or adopted one, and all of a sudden
They got
They get what?
natural
they got
babies,
pregnant.
right? Like
Yet.
natural born. Yeah. And so it's just interesting how it can translate into so many things in your life. Yeah.
Well, you know what's really interesting? Uh, Story here. And I will have to wrap up soon because I know that we've got time commitments here, but what you're saying is so true. Like, I didn't have struggles with infertility, but when my first son came, I was super overjoyed. I got pregnant again, and I was like, oh, I'm sure it's a little girl because I kept having like these visions and dreams of this little girl, right? This brown-eyed, brown-haired, curly haired little girl. And lo and behold, it was another boy. And so I got pregnant again, and I'm like, you know what? It's got to be my girl this time. Nope, another boy. And I got pregnant again, and I was like, for sure it's my girl. No, it was another boy. And I was like, you know what? Like I kind of mourned because I kept seeing this beautiful brown-eyed, curly haired little girl, right? And I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I'm a boy mom. I love my boys, like love them. I'm so grateful for them. But I kind of mourned not having a girl because I love my little girls. I wanted my girl too. When I finally became okay with the fact that I was just going to be a boy mom, that's when I got pregnant with my girl. And she actually was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And then I got pregnant again with my brown-eyed, curly-haired little girl. Like she manifested in my life, right? But it was once we become grateful for what it is we truly have and love that, something else comes our way. And I love what you're saying there. So, ladies, I really appreciate you guys being on. I think we could probably have like a 4 or 5 hour conversation about this very topic. So maybe we will, and we'll break it up into some different segments. But, you know, thinking about our relationships now, showing the gratitude we have now, learning from our relationships now, and seeing like what is the thread there? And is it somehow speaking to our money story, and if it, or whatever it is we want to manifest story? I think that that's so key, and I love that, you know, this is something that the two of you teach. So, for any of you guys wanting to hang out with Bronwen and Tera, they're amazing. I love them. They're super good friends of mine. Go check them out at Shaoli Hope. They've got some really great things for you and to offer you. And Bronwen and Tera, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks you guys. Bye.
We'll see ya.
All right, Boundary Boss Babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss Babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other Boss Babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the send us a text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, Boss Babes.